So last night, I experienced one of the loudest tinnitus spikes I've had in a really long time. And today, now that I'm feeling a little bit better, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit more about the concept of habituation, what it's like to have a tinnitus spike after you've habituated, and how you can cope more effectively when it happens. But let's start with the basics. So habituation is a mental process that allows us to filter out meaningless, repetitive sensory stimuli like sound from our conscious awareness. Now, this is a really important part of human cognition because at any given moment, your brain can only really process a tiny amount of available sensory information. Just think about all of the different things that are happening right now that you aren't paying attention to. Background noise, air temperature, your clothing against your skin, everything else in your visual field, smells, minor aches and pains. The list is endless. And if we weren't able to tune it all out and focus our attention, we wouldn't be able to function at all. We would be constantly overwhelmed with information. So to survive, we evolved these filtering mechanisms to tune things out. And until there's a cure for tinnitus, this filtering mechanism, or habituation, is our best hope for finding relief. But when it comes to tinnitus, there's a problem, because these filtering mechanisms also serve as an alarm system. When our brain perceives a stimulus that it interprets as something dangerous or threatening, it grabs our attention and triggers a stress response to respond to that danger. The other issue here is that our brains also can't tell the difference between a real threat and an imagined one like tinnitus, so the outcome is the same. It trips the alarm, grabs our attention, and triggers a stress response that never ends because our tinnitus doesn't just go away. Now, luckily, we can change the way we react to the sound, and once we do, these filtering mechanisms can tune out the sounds of tinnitus like they do with all other meaningless background noise, and like they should have been doing all along. Now, I habituated a long time ago. My tinnitus rarely ever bothers me anymore, at least not in any meaningful kind of way. And most of the time, it's so far in the background of my awareness that it's almost like it's not there at all. But I do occasionally get spikes, and sometimes they're very loud, like yesterday. So all day yesterday, I had been dealing with a small flare-up of my Meniere's disease symptoms. I was a little bit dizzy. There was a pronounced feeling of fullness in my right ear. And it wasn't anything I couldn't handle. But watching TV last night, I felt a sudden whoosh as the pressure suddenly ramped up and a new, much higher pitched sound exploded in my right ear. Now, the old me would have panicked immediately. My stress levels would have gone through the roof, and I would have suffered in misery for hours, if not days. But things are very different now. I was startled, but within minutes, I was able to dramatically reduce the emotional and psychological impact of the spike. So I'm going to walk you through exactly what I did next, step by step, because even if you've habituated, your tinnitus isn't gone. And part of living well with tinnitus is being able to effectively deal with these kinds of issues as they occur. So I call this the tinnitus reaction technique. The first thing I did was pause the TV. I always stop whatever it is that I happen to be doing and give it my full attention. I find that fighting to ignore the sound only makes it worse. Next, I tried to inject a bit of rationality into the situation and mentally reframe what was happening. I thought to myself, that's interesting. I haven't heard this before. I wonder what's going on here. Let me explore this. Now, it's difficult, but forcing this kind of rational thought helps to prevent me from having a fear or anxiety response. I then closed my eyes and took several deep breaths, consciously relaxing my muscles with each exhale. And now this doesn't make it go away, but it does calm me down, further helping to prevent panic, because panic makes everything so much worse. Next, I tried to remind myself that it's just a spike and not a reason to freak out. I've had tons of spikes before and they always pass. There was no reason to think that this one will be any different. I was fine before this. Everything will go back to normal soon. Kind of give myself this mental reminder. And lastly, I chose a coping strategy and used it immediately. This is very important. Now, I chose meditation, specifically tinnitus-focused meditation, which, if you guys have been following me, you know I talk a lot about. But that's certainly not the only way. When you've already habituated, sound masking, distraction, or anything that promotes mental or physical relaxation are all excellent strategies here. And that's all it took. Within a few minutes of meditating to this new sound, I was calm again, or at least much calmer than I was before. And even though it was still loud, it wasn't really bothering me as much anymore. So I was able to fall asleep without any issues, and when I woke up this morning, it was mostly back to normal. So that's all for me for today. I encourage you guys to give this a try, though please keep in mind that it will take practice for this to work as effectively for you as it does for me. Thanks, everybody.